Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. This is Talk Thursday. It's now the third day since the midterm polls and results are still coming in. The unofficial count is at about 76% and the official tally is continuing. Based on Comelec's official running tally, Team Pinoy senatorial candidate Bam Aquino makes it to the magic 12. He is the only Liberal Party bet to break into that list of leading candidates. He is the former commissioner of the National Youth Commission and a cousin of President Benigno Aquino. He's also one of the 10 outstanding Persons of the Year of the World for 2012 for Happinoy, the program which assists startup businesses for the poor. Bam, thank you for coming here.
Thank you
today.
for inviting me, Maria. Magandang hapon. Good afternoon.
Magandang hapon. It's been 90 days of a full-out campaign for you. How are you? How do you feel?
Okay. I mean, we're just patiently waiting for the counting to be over. So far, so good. Mukhang okay naman tayo. But syempre, iba pa rin pag final na talaga yung bilangan. So we're hoping that the proclamation can happen as soon as possible.
High point of the campaign for you when you're looking back at this 90 days. I mean, we saw you in the middle of it. It's a pretty grueling campaign.
I guess the high point was the first time I broke into the top 12 in the survey. Simply because we had come from 24.
Yes.
No, and from 24, it wasn't a fast going up in the survey numbers. No, it was actually it took some time. It took a few months, and there was one time where we had worked so hard, and our numbers jumped like half a percentage point or 2 percentage points. But the first time we broke into the top 12 was quite a major point for us. Of course, going around, meeting a lot of people, that's the benefit of having a good campaign and a people-centered campaign. We would meet with people from the business sector, local government leaders, youth volunteers. And everywhere you went, it was always meeting good people who are already doing what they could do for their own community. So that was really gratifying. But to be honest, it was really tiring. But in many ways, it was also very inspiring. So I'm just happy that it's done. And hopefully, if the counting is done by tonight or by tomorrow, I'm hoping that we can get to work and fulfill all of these things we had said in the campaign.
Well, during this entire process that you've gone through, what did you learn about the Philippines?
Well, marami pang kailangan gawin. No? But I think that's not really something that you need to know because it's pretty obvious. No? But what's good is, the president being there, the economic reforms being set in place. There's a lot of hope. But at the same time, the flip side is there's a lot more that needs to be done. What I said before, which was in 2010 when Pinoy won, parang nag-reset tayo eh. It's like we pressed the reset button and we started from scratch. No?
Yes.
In fact, baka we start from negative pa because a lot of things had to be repaired. A lot of institutions had to be repaired. A lot of processes needed to be redone. No? And now we're at that point where we have a good foundation. There are a lot of good indicators. But a lot of our people still are waiting to see it. No? So as I said from the beginning of the campaign, which I would really focus on, and hopefully we can get to it as soon as possible, is that as our economy is doing better, as we're enjoying the best economy in Southeast Asia, the second best in Asia next to China, 3 investment groups giving us an investment grade rating, all of these great things. Now, it's time that we do that, we have that, at the same time focus on programs that can help our countrymen the most. No? So jobs, support for micro businesses, things that will help our equality numbers. No? Because even if we have one of the best economies in Asia, our inequality numbers are one of the highest. So we are one of the we are one of the countries with the highest inequality in our region. Even at the same time having one of the best performing economies. So what does that say? Now, obviously, it says that even though the economy is doing well, not everyone is benefiting from it. So now is the best time to push for these programs. And a lot of our countrymen, they see a lot of good things. They see a clean president. They see a lot of reforms being done. But they also want to experience this in their families. No? They want to make sure that their children don't have to work abroad, that their kids have these very basic services. And yan yung hinihintay ng maraming Pilipino.
Well, I'm going to follow up from that because from Lovette Regner says, given the exciting economic environment, what are your plans to make sure this growth will be inclusive?
Yeah. Well, inclusive growth, that's really what we've been doing for the past so many years in Happinoy, in social enterprise. It goes back to jobs and support for micro businesses. Babalik at babalik dun eh. Kumbaga, kung yung economy natin gumaganda pero kulang pa rin yung mga trabaho, hindi pa rin tumaramdaman ng maraming Pilipino. So, you have to have policies that can ensure that the investments that do come in, first of all, they have to come in.
Yes.
So that's first level, no?
Yes.
Second is that as they come in, they're translated into jobs. No, jobs, people with options for jobs will eventually have better standard of living, and eventually those jobs will be, equate to better salaries, more money for the family, more money for kids to go to school, better food that they're actually taking, more opportunities in different communities. People can put up businesses because the people with jobs have money to spend. So the jobs, very, very important yan, especially for young people, because the number one sector that's unemployed now are the young, no? And secondly is support for our micro business owners. No, it's actually part of our platform to really push for microfinance and really see that sector grow. We're looking at maybe another 5 to 8 million more micro entrepreneurs created by supporting the microfinance industry. That's something that's very exciting. No, microfinance happens below the radar without anyone knowing it, but they've been there for the past 20 plus years, working in the far-flung communities, helping our farmers, helping our poor countrymen. If somebody really puts a spotlight on them and really helps them grow, I think we'll be able to create millions of entrepreneurs through microfinance and through supporting more cooperatives who provide the financial services for the poor. That's another pillar that we're going to focus on. Both of those things, isama mo na yung some educational reforms. So those three things, if you put them together, that will fight poverty in our country. No? Kasi we have to go beyond slogans.
Yes.
We have to go beyond, para sa mahirap kami, lalaban tayo sa kahirapan, and go into specifics. And specifics are getting investments in, making sure that those are jobs for Filipinos, making sure that Filipinos have no collateral, still have access to capital, training institutions that can provide training for them for free or at lower rates, and access to market. No? Ways to be able to create efficiencies in the market. No? An inclusive supply chain equals an inclusive growth strategy for the country. So, I'm going to focus on that. Hindi lang naman yun yung mga solusyon sa mga problema natin. Marami pa rin, no? There's, of course, tourism, support for more, for our farmers in terms of agricultural inputs, modernization of our agriculture. That's going to be there as well. But specifically, hopefully, I'll be able to work on those things first. Creating more entrepreneurs by supporting our institutions that provide capital for the poor, and supporting our countrymen, especially the youth, in terms of providing more jobs.
This is not the first time I've heard you talk about this, and you have been working on microfinance for a long time. But let's focus on the elections itself.
Okay.
How, in your mind, how were these elections run? Second automated elections in the Philippines.
Yeah, alam mo, we're kind of spoiled, no? I remember Senator Pangilinan, who was my campaign manager, telling me that the first time that he ran, he was proclaimed in June. Okay.
Yes.
And you can imagine how the whole team felt from the end of the elections till the first week of June. Ngayon, syempre, it's been 3 days, and we're already complaining that it's taking so long. I'm happy that it's automated. I think it's easier for everyone. Of course, it doesn't mean that the elections are foolproof. Now, we've heard that because people aren't cheating after the elections, they're now cheating before the elections, which is vote buying. That still has to be addressed.
Yes.
There's been too much. Again, if you ask me, an analysis, more than, because dynasty was a big issue in these elections.
And also, you've been asked this question at every single place you've been.
The results actually show otherwise. No? But ako, even more than the dynasty issue, it's really more the control of media in terms of the people who can win and who can't win on the national level.
Explain.
You need to be on TV to be able to win.
I see. Yeah,
and
yes.
to be able to be on TV, you need a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's not the equalizer that people thought it would be. Because before, they said, magastos umikot, kaya maglagay tayo ng ads para yung mga hindi makakaikot, hindi makakagastos sa ikot, at least it's more efficient. They can pay for ads, and that will help them help their campaign. But it's the reverse. Pag yung pag-iikot, mas mura, especially with low-cost fares.
Yes.
To be frank, with low-cost fares, and I guess these days it's more accessible to get around. You have ferries, you have roros, you have planes, you have a lot of different ways to get around. So the big cost center really are the ads, and that's very restrictive. Kumbaga, your last name, I think, of course, advantage pa rin yun, but the bigger advantage is getting on TV. And if there are reforms to be done, I'm hoping that it can be somewhere there. I don't know if we should have it free or have opportunities for more candidates to have their platforms on air.
How did it affect your campaign? The fact that at the beginning of the campaign, the rule was different from the end of the campaign after the Supreme Court.
It didn't matter to us because we couldn't raise the money anyway.
You couldn't. Okay.
So my wife's laughing off camera because it's true. I mean, yung 120 lang, hirap na kami na ma-fulfill yun. 120 minutes is 1,000,000 pesos per minute. That's 120 million pesos.
Grabe.
Okay, so if
Yes,
you're saying
yes.
120 minutes per station,
Yes.
that's 120 times X, no? So it's and you have limits to your spending.
Yes.
So, if you really take everything into account, changing that rule on the last day, it really wouldn't matter for candidates like myself who couldn't raise the money anyway.
Okay.
In fact, we were so happy when that rule came out because at least may semblance of a level playing field. Mataas pa rin
Yes.
na level playing field. Okay, mataas na playing field pa rin yun,
Yeah.
di ba? But at least level. No? But in the future, if there are reforms to be done, aside from strengthening political parties, the turncoatism, which we should really start to address already, one I think is supporting candidates who can't afford the ads and having them at a level playing field with candidates who can afford the ads.
Well, right now, today, the big topic is the count. And Comelec Chair Brillantes just announced that they would they wanted to stop the announcement of the results of the transparency server. Do you have any fears about the count? I mean, you're in both of them, the unofficial and the official
Yes.
count, but is this a cause for worry?
To be frank, I'm like everyone else, I'm just also waiting for what the results are. Now, I also refresh Rappler.com, and when it's still 76%, a part of me is like, my God, it hasn't moved, no?
Yes.
So you still, like everyone else, I'm just concerned about the count. Our lawyers haven't really raised any flags. So we have lawyers who are there
Yes.
now in PICC.
Yes, yes. It's very transparent with this server because you can see where everything is
where
coming
all the
from.
data's coming
Yeah,
from, diba?
yeah.
And I think that's great, no?
Yes.
So if our lawyers probably thought that there would be, a big issue about it, they probably would have called already at this point. But right now, our lawyers are handling the business of counting, which they should.
Yes,
And
yes.
as a candidate, I'm just
You're
happily,
waiting to see.
patiently waiting, anxiously waiting for better results.
Is it really unrealistic to compare it to 2010? Because I think that's where the expectations are based. In 2010, at the end of the second day, you had more than 80% of the unofficial count together.
I have no idea. To be honest, I have no idea why it's been taking this long.
Yes.
Just like you, and I've been reading just the reports, transmission errors or issues. Ako, honestly, I'm just hoping we can get a majority already. Sana we hit 100% already for the unofficial, or at least 95.
Yes.
And we can move on, no? To be frank, I'm absolutely moving on already, no? Because, maraming kwento dyan, Maria, about candidates having withdrawal symptoms from the campaign.
Yes.
Or candidates who tapos na yung election but they still want to go around and shake people's hands, no? I'm absolutely not like that. I'm absolutely ready to get to work. That's where I am already.
How did doing this change you?
How did it change me? Remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. Simply because I think it's too soon.
Yes.
So
yes.
and those changes I think will probably come later on. But I'd like to think that we ran a very professional campaign. We ran a clean campaign. We ran the campaign we wanted to run. We didn't engage in mudslinging. We hit all of the platform. We didn't change our platform because people were saying, negosyo, masyadong mataas yan para sa mga Pilipino, trabaho, gusto nila, pagkain, gusto nila bahay, but I said, we can't change your platform just because that's what people want to hear. You have to have a basis for that. So we had to go back to what we were already doing and say, this is really what we want to do. And if people like that, great. If they don't like it, too bad, diba? So, I think in terms of that type of integrity, I think we kept to it. We had a very good team. We had a team of veterans. Of course, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Serge, my dad, Rolly, Fabi, Renan Dalisay, the campaign managers of Senator Kiko were running the show there. Group of veterans really helping us out on strategy, and a lot of young leaders helping us out on the ground. No, a lot of family support, which was really great. From my wife being my number one surrogate in a lot of sorties. My mom going to practically all the palenques in the National Capital Region. My brothers also being very active in the campaign. My cousins, my pamangkins, everyone really giving a lot of effort. A lot of the volunteers of Pinoy also helping out in 2013. No? Not just the 2010 volunteers helped out in 2013 again. No? So it's been a very good campaign, very professional. We also ran it very professionally. No nonsense, no hanky-panky. Talagang, we had a regimen. We'd wake up really early, 4 o'clock, 4:30. We'd take the earliest flight, go to a place. By 9 o'clock after dinner, the rule was lights out. And we ran it very professionally. So, kasi your body can't take it.
Yeah,
That's why
correct,
candidates get sick, because afterwards they unwind, they chit-chat with people, and they tend to, their bodies
yeah.
eventually pay the price. No? So, in our case, 9 o'clock, 9:30, kung pwedeng nasa hotel, tulog na, tulog na. No? And we ran it that way, very, very professionally. And I think at the end of everything, relatively everyone was still healthy. We weren't, wanting to kill ourselves or kill each other, and very hopeful about the campaign. No?
Did you have any surprises?
Well, in terms of pleasant surprises, yes. No?
How about low points?
Low points. There was one point where our numbers went down.
All about how,
again, no, I told you this before, no, we based a lot of our moves on the surveys, no, because we believe in the surveys. They provided a snapshot of where people were
at that point in time,
and that was the most scientific and metric-based reasons for moving forward,
yes,
or reassessing your strategies. No, so there were times when we had a downtrend,
yes,
which we had to address right away, and hopefully, and good thing we were able to address them on the downtrends. No?
This was a much more fickle voting population. I mean, we hadn't seen so much movement in terms of the candidates in a long time.
I was pretty steady.
Yes.
So I would always be in the middle. No, honestly,
Yeah.
And I was saying, being in the middle is not so bad.
Yes.
Okay, why? Kasi kung 1, 2, 3 ka, iba yung laban ninyo sa 1, 2, 3 eh.
Correct.
Yung patayan nyo dyan, ibang level eh. I mean, you
which
would
we
actually... Yeah, which it's a different game at 1, 2, and 3. And 10 to 15, wow, that's also... And we were at 10 when we began. That was when the black prop started to come out, no?
Yes.
When we broke into the top 12.
Which is when we spoke, yes, I remember that.
So when we eventually got to 8 and 7, well, 8 and 6, then back to 9, now we're at 7. It's a good place to be in, no? We were saying it's a place where people can leave you alone and you can just go to work and really just do what needs to be done. Hindi ka na muna makikipaglaro sa politika, just really try to get things done. No? It's a good place to be in, and I'm quite happy with that. Again, considering that we started at 24,
yes,
I'm the youngest one to run, and our last survey with SWS, we were at 9. So being at 7, I think, is an improvement, no? And if you analyze all the numbers from the beginning of the filing, there are only 2 candidates who came in who weren't in the top 12. That's me and number 1, Grace Poe.
Correct.
Diba? Everyone else, they were already there.
Yes.
Nandun na sila. They just had to make sure na hindi sila babagsak. But yung kung makikita mo talaga, the ones who came from below and really, talagang moved all the way
pushed
up. Myself and Grace Poe, I have to give it to our campaign managers and to the people, for trusting and for believing in us. No?
This is a tougher time. I mean, when I was looking at the campaign, it's a hard time to actually be a politician because so much is changing in the country.
So much, no? It's okay rin. It's okay rin siya for a new politician like myself to be in a new setting. Kasi hindi ako sanay sa old rules eh. Everything, the new rules are my rules. No? Like for example, with social media, no secrets.
Well,
diba?
I can see from the questions you are actually getting, you're getting a ton of questions on social media, which I need to get through. Yeah, so you're on social media, yes?
You have to expect that people know your every move. No? A lot of the older politicians, I think, weren't prepared for that.
Yes.
That you could probably get away with 1 or 2 things na people won't already know. But ngayon,
yes,
it's very hard to, you have to be completely transparent. Everything that you have done, more or less, you have to be prepared for it to get out
yes,
to the world, diba?
Yes, yes.
That's a new way of doing politics now. But because I'm new, I think it's my reality, no?
But the reality also is that the old tactics, vote buying, violence, they're all still there.
Still there.
How did you deal with any of this? Did you have to?
On the national level, it's not as bad.
Okay.
Because no candidate, I think, can buy their
way for a national
position. To be
yes,
frank, no. So I think in terms of at the national level, it's not the same as in the local level. Thankfully.
Yes.
But we do have a lot of colleagues and friends who didn't make it because, in their own words, umulan ng pera dun sa lugar nila.
So now that you're in politics, I mean, this is going to be Bam Aquino having to deal with the kind of corruption that moves in Transparency International. We've moved a little bit, but it's still endemic corruption. How do you draw your lines? How are you going to deal with getting, how do you not make compromises when you have to, as a senator, if you win, you're going to have to deal with a collegial body.
Yes. Well, two things, no, in terms of corruption. This has always been my theory with regard to corruption. It's both personal and systemic.
Yes.
So personal, kailangan yung tao mismo may integrity. No, kailangan yung tao mismong nandyan, talagang lalayo sa corruption. That's probably the most basic.
Yes.
A lot of us thought that would be enough. But it's not. It's also systemic. So you need people who can look at systems and say, okay, these are the loopholes where corruption happens. When one step is too arbitrary or it takes too long, that's where corruption is bred. No? So to stamp out corruption, it's both putting in good people and making sure the systems have changed. No? You use technology, it's more transparent. Yes. More eyes are on different processes where corruption used to happen. I think DBM has been doing a good job in terms of reforming their systems, but has to go all the way, pati customs, BIR, all of these agencies which are known for some level of corruption. They need to change their systems. Kaya when the other day, si Rufy Biason said, yung BOC needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. I agree.
Yes.
But not necessarily in terms of what they do, but how they do it. Because if you're able to change how they do things, then you can look at the system side of corruption. Matatanggal siya. And it's both. No?
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
The third one, I guess, if you're talking about the individual, the system, the third is the people. The people need to get in on it. No? Kumbaga, if there's no pressure from people, it's not gonna happen.
Yes.
So the stakeholders need to be involved. People, need to want the change to happen. No? Kasi when an agency is corrupt, the tendency is a lot of the people involved are also complicit.
Correct.
So, you need to have the people also involved wanting for these changes to happen. And if I know it's more of an executive function, but if there's anything that we can do on again, hopefully, kung matapos na yung counting on the legislative side, hopefully we'll be able to help curb the corruption in that sense. No?
What did you learn about the Filipino voter now? What's important to them? Did it change your perspective about where we are now?
Filipinos, I think, one, they'll vote for you for different reasons. And sometimes, they'll vote for multiple candidates for different reasons. No?
Yes.
They may vote for one person because, gusto ko yung family niya hindi niya, the line usually na ginagamit, di naman niya ipapahiya yung mga kapamilya niya, di ba?
Yes.
On the other hand, he may also vote for another person because, magaling track record nito, maraming natulungan nito. Hindi siya consistent all throughout. But I guess that's the way human nature is, no? I mean, if they were completely consistent, then things would be completely predictable and it wouldn't be more fun in the Philippines, di ba? But because people are unpredictable, what you need to do is you need to find why do people want to vote for you? What is it in you that people want to vote for? Is it, kasi we have, both in the local and the national, we've had cases where total newbies were able to win. In some cases naman, it was the tried and tested politician that won. Iba-iba
Yes.
Iba-iba talaga We've had cases in local politics where entrenched dynasties were wiped out.
Yes.
No? And then again, we have naman a lot of winners also who come from families that have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
So, hindi pa siya completely predictable. And that's good because when things are unpredictable, then the politicians need to be on their toes all the time, di ba? If everything was predictable, mas madali siguro ang election. But the fact that it's hard and that, people, you're still open to a lot of surprises, a lot of different things can come up. I think that makes our electoral process at least a little bit more exciting.
One of the analysts we spoke with during Election Day was pointing out that it's continuity and change, that the Filipino voter still looked for the familiar names, but they were new faces.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I mean, you're one of those. Actually, it was pointed out, Nancy Binay, Grace Poe, familiar but different and a younger generation.
Maybe. No, also, if you look at the ones who won, most are in their 40s.
Yes.
There's Senator Villar, who's in her 50s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then myself, who's 36. But the rest are in their 40s.
Yes.
So it also represents, I think, a generational turnover, so to speak. No. A lot of younger, at least in the Senate, a lot of younger senators are coming in. And again, they might probably have come from old names, but they're new and they're young and they're a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more passionate, hopefully with better ideas than in the past, no?
Or can fight to reform the system. I need to throw
Okay.
these questions at you because there's so many, and they're not easy. Joseph Solis Alcaide says, why not support the initiatives of Sonny Belmonte and Juan Ponce and really to abolish the 60-40 forced equity sharing in favor of Filipino investors so that foreign MNCs can set up their businesses anywhere, not just in the peso zones in the country?
I've actually given my stand there already. No, it's not the 60-40 that I'm actually worried about. It's the charter change. So I'm not in favor of a charter change now. Maybe after the president's term, we can start looking at that. Why? Because as I said earlier, para tayo nag-reset ulit eh. And while you're building foundations again, it's hard to put in something that can totally revamp the whole thing yet again.
So you're saying control the variables, make the change that
let's have our economic growth. Let's sustain it for at least 5, 6, 7 years. Let's push let's have better numbers in terms of inequality, make it more equal, have more of our social welfare programs or more programs to really help our poor countrymen in place and institutionalized. Then, at that point, possibly a charter change. Not just in terms of the 60-40, but a lot of the provisions that people want to have changed. We can start the discussion. But right now, I think we need to have more political stability and more economic stability before a cha-cha.
On TV ads, this is from @Mick University. How much did you spend in TV ads in total? Very curious here, he says.
A lot of money. I think we hit about 90 minutes, no?
90
So
minutes.
if it's ₱1 million per minute,
90
and that's about
million.
average. I'm not on the high.
Yes, yes.
That's medyo mid-range lang yon in terms of the spending for ads. In terms of our budget, 90% probably went to ABS-CBN and GMA7. To be frank, no?
Yes, yes.
So that's something na, hopefully we can find other ways to make it more fair to
Do you
more
have
candidates.
excess campaign finance?
There's a little bit left, but the expenses are continuing eh. You don't let go of your staff, of course, because
Yes,
hindi tapos
you have
yung
to. Yeah.
proclamation.
Yes.
So there are, hopefully, kung manalo tayo, I do plan to go around again and thank people.
Yes.
I promised them that I would go back and thank them, so that's still part of the expenses.
Correct.
But all of that will be in COMELEC and it will be of record.
Public
naman, no?
record.
Yeah. We have
I-
10 days to fulfill all of the documentary requirements.
Is it true you're returning some of the campaign funds? I saw this somewhere
Yeah, there's
earlier
some.
today.
There's some that we returned. No.
You've returned.
Yeah,
Not something that you can use in the coming days, or
we can, but the people that donate, no, some of them also need it, but they went out of their way to donate because they believe in you. So for some of those friends, we decided that maybe we could return a little bit, or some of it, or all of it.
Could you give an idea how much you've returned?
No.
Okay.
No, but ano naman, no. Let's just leave it at that, no? Na,
Yes.
Throughout this process kasi, it's very humbling when somebody gives you money.
Yes.
Okay, when somebody donates money to you, it's very humbling. It's not, when you're used to working for your money. Okay, you're a professional,
Absolutely.
I'm a professional.
Yes,
we work
yes,
for our
yes,
money, di ba?
yes.
But this one, tumataya sila sa'yo eh.
Yes.
They're saying, and no one who gave me money asked for anything.
Yes.
No one said, oh, you have to pass this bill, you have to
Yes,
pass.
yes.
No one. Zero. They said, do well, your cousin's doing a good job, the reforms needed, he needs more people in the Senate who can help him. At most, yun yung sinabi nila.
Yes.
We believe in you, do well. It's very humbling. When you accept that money, and you need to accept because you can't raise it on your own, no?
Correct.
And you accept that money, and it's not just money. It's their trust, it's their belief, and it's very humbling. And every single peso that was donated, that's somebody's hard-earned money believing in you. So we took it quite seriously, and we hope that we'll be able to do justice to the people who helped us out. No?
Fantastic. But it's in general, though, this is campaign financing globally. Does this come with strings attached? How do you look at that?
Well,
moving in?
ako, honestly, nobody asked for anything. And that I can be very honest there.
Yes.
No one asked for anything. There were a few people who intimated that they wanted to donate, and we opted not to work with them. No?
Yes. You decided who you were going to also choose
Yes.
money from.
Yes.
Interesting. What was behind decisions like that?
Marami eh. Talagang pinagdebatihan yan eh. Kasi pag-ipit ka, talagang, but I think we were able to, as I said earlier, we were able to run it honest and a campaign that we're very proud of. Though.
I would ask you more about this privately then, since you don't want to talk about it. That sounds fascinating because those are the lines. And what lines did you draw? When you say we were able to run a clean campaign, what were the lines you decided you weren't going to cross?
Well, syempre, if the money is coming from sources na hindi ka sigurado, di ba?
Yes.
If they're from legitimate businessmen with legitimate companies, with relatives who have been, working their whole lives and wanting to donate, classmates who donated as well,
yes.
friends, then again, it's very humbling to accept that support. No? But there are some cases na talagang hindi mo kilala,
Yes.
or may certain ties to certain groups. Then you opt just not to accept.
When you're a journalist looking at politics, and then I see all the black propaganda thrown at each other, I see all the negatives of it.
Yeah.
It's really ugly when you're looking at it from the outside, and I can only think it's worse when you're in the middle of it. How do you deal with it? And two, what are you going to do to change it?
Alam mo yung black propaganda naman kasi, iba kasi yung may nagawa ka talagang masama and you have to answer for that.
Yes.
At iba yung they twist certain facts.
Yes.
No? So, in my case, it was the twisting of certain facts.
And this is the one about GMA.
Yeah, where Una made it seem like I was there till 2010. No? It's a decade long of service, all of that, diba?
In fact, you can answer that question because this came in from Piper Girl. 2005, when Cory called GMA to go and Congressman Pinoy quit GMA's ruling coalition in process, why did you stay in your New York City post?
New York City, National Youth Commission.
National Youth Commission post.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Secretary Soliman, Secretary Gachtorian at the time, and I said I'd be done in a few months. I'd like to turn over properly.
Yes.
And they said, okay, because we left because we were being used for corruption. Are you being used for corruption? I said, no. We're practically left alone. We're a little agency that has a lot of big dreams and big hopes. And
Yes.
I want to turn over properly. I want to be able to, not just leave the next day. Bye, guys. The last 5 years is a blur. No? So
keep it professional.
Keep it professional. Turn over properly. We had a process of turning over documents and programs. That took a few months, and my term ended February. Tita Cory, I think, called for GMA to resign in July.
Yes.
I think, no?
Yes.
July. August, September, October, November, December, January. So 6 months. First week of Feb or second week of Feb, I was done. But earlier on, I already sent my letter. I said, thank you for the time that I spent here, but I'm done and I'm leaving. So that was it.
And this was thrown against you earlier in the campaign.
Yeah, but they forget to say that I was done within 6 months. No, the line that they used was a decade long of service to the president. And as you know, 2005, 2006, that was a very different time from 2009 and 2010.
Correct.
As it was very different from 2001.
Correct.
We're talking about 9 years here. And to be frank, when I entered government in 2001, I was extremely hopeful, extremely idealistic. We all came from EDSA DOS, and ERAP was replaced on a platform of good governance. So a lot of people were quite hopeful at that time. And only to see it all crash and fall, no? I mean, by 2005 or 2006, it was
2005.
It's really
Hello,
very
Garci.
difficult. No? It's very difficult. But even with Hello Garci, the secretaries didn't leave right away.
Yes.
Diba? I'm sorry speech pa yan,
Yes,
diba? And so on and so forth. So, it on hindsight, parang things, of course, are really cut and dry. But at that time, the decision to leave was made, and I felt that it was the right time to go. I was able to turn over properly. We had a very good track record in the National Youth Commission. But at the same time, before ZTE came out, before all of these things came out, I'd already chosen another path. That was to work with Tita Cory in microfinance.
Yes.
So, there was an article that was written, said na parang Pinoy, the president should whack me in the head for all these things. No? And again, they refused to acknowledge that my next career was working in microfinance, which Tita Cory practically supported in her last few years of her life. So, again, twisting facts, not sharing all the information, making it seem that this was that and that was this. No? But ako today, whatever. No, I mean, to be frank, parang it's all done. Tapos na. Okay, basta ako, malinis ang puso ko. I didn't engage in black propaganda. I didn't have anyone black propped or brought anybody down. No, we said we would run this cleanly and we would focus on our strengths and focus on what we want to do for the country. And that's what we did. Even if it was very tempting to retaliate and, because the people who were throwing all these things against us, marami rin naman silang, madali mong balikan, di ba?
Yes.
Kasi marami rin naman silang nagawang hindi maganda. Pero, we didn't do that. And I'm happy that in the end, most of the people in the top 12 did not engage in black propaganda.
That's good.
A lot of the top people in the top 12 focused on what they wanted to do for the country and what they did already. Most, if not all of them.
So I'll go back to the question, what does that show you about the Filipino voter today?
Well, alam mo, ano rin yan depende yan dun sa dun sa sitwasyon rin nung panahon, no? In 2010, it's very different. We're coming from 9 years of GMA, the last couple of years being very corrupt. People were sick of it already, and they chose Pinoy because he was the symbol of somebody who was clean and somebody who could bring our country to where it is now, which is in tuwid na daan. That's why they chose him. In 2013, your backdrop is an improving economy, not perfect, though we had some hiccups along the way, but in general, a clean government, improving economy. So automatically, if you were the opposition, it would be very, very hard for you to start attacking Pinoy, and his approval rating is at what?
Correct.
His positives at 72 or
Yes.
73.
Yes.
So it was very hard for them to run a campaign that way. So instead, they said, hindi naman kami opposition talaga. Di ba? Which again naman, also weakens their position. So kung hindi ka pala opposition, hindi doon na lang kami sa admin, di ba?
Correct.
So it was very difficult for the opposition to run now.
Correct.
The contrary was 2010,
Yes.
where it was much simpler to run as the opposition then because you were coming from the time. So, depende rin yan sa panahon And your strategy, the way that you approach issues and matters needs to reflect the signs of the times as well. And at the end of the day, calling us Team Pinoy was probably the best decision ever. Which, by the way, was approved by the President, no? Senator Drilon said this. They were the ones who gave suggestions to the President. I'm quoting him. This is not this is not a personal story. This is what I heard from Senator Drilon from one of the accounts, no? They came up with the name Team Pinoy. Then they asked the President, "Are you okay with calling the slate Team Pinoy?" And he said, "Okay, I'm okay with it." Then they said, "Are you sure? Because with your name there, if a lot of them lose, that's going to reflect on you."
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, what Senator Drilon said in that article was, the President said, well, kaya ka nga may political capital para magamit mo yan. Which I think is amazing that, somebody who's saying, if you have the political capital, you should use it because, you want to see reforms done.
Yeah.
Kesa sa, ang lakas ng political capital mo, ayaw mo naman gamitin kasi natatakot ka na magkamali ka, di ba?
He's done an all or nothing twice.
Diba?
Corona, several times.
And many other issues.
Yes.
And even these elections. He was so active, mga batikos sa kanya na, you're spending too much time campaigning.
Correct.
No, he said, this is important. Importante itong midterm elections na to. Because if you want a favorable Senate.
Will this slate, now you come from, it is really a rainbow coalition, and the main goal of Team Pinoy was to get a legislative slate that would support the main agenda. Do you think this slate, as it stands right now, will do that?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. One, because I think the respect for the President is extremely high from the people who are running and from the people. No? So yes, I think definitely yes. Two, I think 2016 is still far off. I know everyone's talking about it already. But in my mind, it's a lot of time for a lot of reforms to get done. Again, I'm just excited to get back to work, no? Or to get to work. Di pala back, to get to work.
Yeah.
So, I think the President has a few reforms he still wants to institutionalize. I think the Senate will help him with those reforms.
Okay.
There are other issues, of course, which are not in that agenda. I think yun pwedeng pagdebati. We'll probably, we might come into conflict on some of those issues, no?
Yes.
And even on the issues of that the President is pushing. But I think in general, to push for those reforms, I think that's what we will probably see in the next 3 years.
There are a lot of questions. Please continue. You can send them to #TalkThursday and also directly at Bam Aquino. He is on Twitter. We'll send the questions. I'm sorry we don't have time for them. Your last question is now, 2013 elections pull out much later. What do you think it'll be remembered for?
2013? Grace po?
It's true.
Yeah,
The
to be
surprise, yes.
9-3? 9-3. It's pretty impressive, ah. 9-3 is pretty impressive.
But it's a 9-3 with really no political party system. It seemed that like the crumbling of the political party system
Well,
right
you know
now.
what? the 9 people, the commonality there, again, we're called Team Pinoy.
Yes.
And the differentiating factor was that the president said, these guys will help me push reforms. And I hope that we all are able to do that. No, a lot of these reforms we need. We just signed the K-12 the other day.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that type of reform, that's, again, going back, foundation.
Yes.
12 more years of instruction. No? That's not a contentious bill. It's not. It was. There were some people who opposed it, but not as controversial as most. These are the type of bills I think that we need to push. Bills which will, provide places for the unbanked to get financial support. Again, not very controversial, but it's foundational. No, ways to do business which are quicker and easier, less red tape, less processes which lead to corruption. Again, not very sexy. Probably not going to be controversial. People might not even talk about it, but these are bills that need to get passed. These are reforms that need to be done ASAP so that we can finally take off.
Build the foundation. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, these reforms that the president has in mind, and a lot of them are also the advocacies I want to push. No?
Yes.
These are possibly very non-sexy, very not controversial bills, but we need it already. We need it already. And hopefully with that, we can build the foundation. Eventually, if we build on that, our economy will improve. It will be more equitable, not as our Gini coefficient for inequality won't be as high. And, we'll see the country that we want to see in the next few years. And maybe at the time, we can do the charter change. Maybe at the time, we can do a lot of these other things. No? But right now, it's still going back to basics and putting in these reforms which we need already. No?
Fantastic. Okay.
Bam
Aquino, thank you so
Always
much
for
joining us. We've been speaking with Bam Aquino.
Can I say something?
Please, go ahead.
I'd like to thank Rappler also. No? You were the other new entrant into these elections, and a lot of people got their information from Rappler. Thank you. Even now, I refresh my Rappler page for the results. No? So thank you, Rappler. And more, but to say more power, but that's what I mean.
Well, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Bam Aquino. He is ensconced in the middle of both the official and the unofficial counts. It's the third day. We're expecting some announcements, proclamation by the end of the day. You've been watching Talk Thursday. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for joining us.